The time is now 7:36 a.m. We will now call this special public meeting of the Board of Trustees of Humble Independent School District to order. Moving to our first item of business, public comment. No one signed up to speak, so we will move on to the information item.
Where are those baskets? Are they moving?
First, we will have a presentation on mental health from Dr. Melissa Lee.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. We're very excited to be here today. I have some members of my team here to talk about mental health in Humble ISD and some of our initiatives moving forward. I'd like to introduce them real quick to you if they want to come up with me as well. This is Ty Hobbs, our Director of Personalized Counseling. I've got Maria Ingram. She is one of our student wellness counselors. She primarily serves high school as well as any of our bilingual students and parents. Tammy Johnson is primarily our middle school student wellness counselor, and Francesca works with our elementary. Francesca Newman works with our elementary. I say primarily because oftentimes we don't know what our caseloads will look like, so they have to help each other out, but that's how we started for point of contact. We were very lucky in Humble ISD to have the leadership from the board here with you and district leadership that prioritizes mental health. So last year, we were able to add the 3 student wellness counselors using our ESSER funds. And they're going to talk to you a little bit more in detail about what they do with students on a daily basis. But the overarching high value of it to us in the district is previous to having them, really we were at a loss when it came to campus counselors only have the certification to do a certain level of counseling. And we see a greater need of mental health with our students, where we really are seeing them needing to have somebody dig in deeper with therapy-like services for them. And that typically requires another level of certification, which these ladies all have. They are LPCs, they're licensed professional counselors in the state of Texas. And being able to have them has given us an opportunity to provide those services in district to our students and not have to rely on parents who may or may not have the ability to take them outside the district, or it also allows for parents who don't know where to turn. One of the things we hear quite frequently is, I'm happy to help my student get counseling, but I don't know where to turn, I don't know how to shop for that, essentially. And they are able to provide those references and services to our parents as well. So I'm going to turn it over to them to talk a little bit about the work that the student wellness counselors do, and then Ty and I are going to wrap it up at the end with some of our other mental health initiatives that we have in the district.
So I'm Francesca, and in front of you we have some tools that we may use with our students to help them work through different skills. You can see it's different fidgets, conversation cues, if we're working on those social skills, just different things they can use to help them kind of relax or take a break throughout their day. So as student wellness counselors, we are all Texas licensed professional counselors and also nationally certified counselors. So we really work with the educational teams on campus and really throughout the district to make sure that we're providing collaborative support for our students. We like to promote their academic and social growth as well as their social emotional learning with our campuses. We provide individual and group services to our students and also in person or virtually depending on the situation. So our students are referred to us by campus counselors through a referral process after we've consulted with them. So part of the mental health supports that we help our counselors with are those campus consultations. So if a campus counselor is working with a student and they need additional support, we can talk with them and give them those extra tools to work with or some resources to help them learn more about how to work with the students that may be struggling with grief or anxiety. We also like to be preventative and give intervention strategies. So we host lots of community events and professional development trainings to make sure that our counselors are constantly learning, right? We're lifelong learners as educators and our counselors are too. We respond to crisis interventions at certain instances so that we can target and triage those students. We provide a 6 to 9 week documented evidence-based intervention for our students that are referred by campus counselors. And then we also provide resources to all of our counselors and parents and community members. So we work to build those community partnerships with local hospitals, mental health providers, and medical providers to make sure that we're providing our parents and our families with as much information as they can. You know, some parents don't know where to start. Who will take my insurance? Maybe they're looking for a specific language that they need their child to see or a specific religion. And so we want to make sure that we're able to provide those to them, so we constantly reach out to our community members. So when we look at our support systems, we offer community events and Parent University to every single community member, parent, student in the district. One of our recent community events was our Suicide Awareness Walk that some of you may have attended at Kingwood Park High School. This was our first event of this kind, and it just brought awareness to suicide prevention and suicide awareness. We want to be proactive, right? We see that there is a need for students struggling with suicidal ideation, and by hosting this event, we were able to provide information to over 250 people in our community. We had resources from American Foundation for the Prevention of Suicide, family time, lots of different opportunities for our parents to connect with people if that's what their child is struggling with. And it was also an opportunity for those that have lost someone to suicide to recognize them. So once we've done all of our community supports, that's when we start working with our campuses. We do campus consultations, we train our counselors, we also train our assistant principals and principals. So that way, they have a better understanding of a trauma-informed school and mental health. Once we've consulted with the counselor, then that's when we get parent permission. Because we're licensed professional counselors, we need to have consent from parents before we can see their student. So a counselor refers a student to us, we talk about it, what are some goals we're going to work on, and then we talk to the parent. Parents are very important in our process. So once they've signed consent, then we start those individual or group counseling sessions. Those will last about 6 to 9 weeks, and then at that point, we'll determine what else needs to be done to help that student and their family. We also provide crisis intervention with our mental health unit that is part of the Humble ISD Police Department. So because we respond to crisis situations, we're trained to target and triage those students in that moment, and we have those community connections if our students need an extra additional layer of support. So I'm going to turn it over to Maria to talk about our access.
Good morning. So our role as student wellness counselors is to provide equal and equitable access to our students, our parents, and the staff of Humble ISD. We want to make sure that we're accessible to them. The school sometimes is the first line of support for some of our parents, and by providing that access, we are reducing, the ethnic disparities that there may be, the racial and ethnic disparity of access to mental health, right? So we are providing this to parents. They trust us to do what's best for their child, and we also provide them with navigating the services, right? So navigating mental health, as Francesca mentioned, we do often have parents that do want to find help for their students. They just don't know how to navigate the mental system, so we do provide that support for them. By doing so, we are direct and convenient access to them. We are, the school counselor is the first point of contact with the child through personalized counseling, and then they realize this child may need additional support, right? So that's when they're referred to us. We have a consultation by targeting the needs of the student, right? We reduce the stress and trauma and toxic stress of trauma during the daily school day for the students, so this helps them focus better, right? It reduces risk factors that will later on maybe manifest in their life if we have early intervention. By promoting positive and social emotional skills, we lead to healthy well-being of all students that can focus on, college and career readiness as well as their success in school. So student wellness counselor events, our number is constantly changing. We have directly impacted 2,392, but that number changes weekly, right? We are constantly sending out mental health literacy, newsletters, information to our parents, to our staff, to just share with everyone, to make sure that we're keeping everybody informed of what, we have the ways that we can help our students. So till to date, we have provided 43 district-wide trainings to administrators, counselors, LSSPs, teachers, and community members. And I'm going to show you a brief video of the clip of some of the events that we have hosted, such as our Suicide Awareness Walk and others.
We tested the sound, I swear, before we started.
This is our Suicide Awareness Walk in September. You can see our local programs. This is our mental health and wellness fair.
That was hosted last February.
There's our Humble ISD mental health.
These are our volunteers that some of them are part of our student advisory committee. Community partnerships such as Family Times, HAM, and other community partnerships that were part of our community events that we hosted in this past year. Professional development that we've hosted for the LSSBs as well as other groups. Now I'm going to pass it on to Tammy Johnson, and she's going to talk about the impact of our program.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to share some of the great things that our team has done and the impact that we've had across the district in just our first year. As you can see here, we conducted 929 counseling sessions, 745 campus consultations, 406 parent contacts, 25 home visits, 247 suicide risk assessment follow-ups, 120 mental health unit contacts with our wellness officers, 56 crisis interventions, and 33 student check-ins. And these numbers have actually increased since we completed our presentation. So the heading reads the average day of a student wellness counselor, but none of our days are typical. They vary from day to day, and even between the three of us, our days look very different just based on our grade levels and the needs of our students. But for individual sessions, so this could be the actual face-to-face time that we're meeting with the student. We also do virtual sessions, which we conducted over the summer in instances when we have to work after hours, when a parent has to be present after work. So we do virtual sessions. But this also includes treatment planning. And this is when we set the goals and objectives for counseling for each of our students. It also includes the time that we make session notes, plan activities for the sessions, and do our follow-up documentation that's needed. So from referral to termination, it's about 60 hours per student that we spend working in individual sessions. For campus consultations, this may mean referral conversations with counselors. They may call and they want to brainstorm something for a new initiative that they're trying on their campus. They may need a second opinion about something or a crisis that they just want us to give a little feedback about. As mentioned before, we do counselor training, LSSP training, AP and principal training as well. Parent contacts may look like us calling them for consent to see their student. It could be a progress update, giving resources to parents, or just answering any questions that they may have. A friend mentioned Parent University. Some of our topics have included substance abuse awareness, suicide awareness, test anxiety, depression, holiday stress. Those are some of the topics that we've done in the past, and our community events you guys have heard about. For suicide risk assessment, this takes up a pretty good bulk of our time. I think we had 247 to date. And so every time there's a suicide risk assessment, if it's elementary, Frank gets the notification.
Is that just this school year or since you guys started?
Since we got started.
Okay.
Total, yes. So we get those assessments, and then our job is to follow up with the campus counselor to make sure that the students get the support that they need. So that may need assistance to getting admitted into a hospital. It may mean linking them to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a private therapist. And then we follow up after they reintegrate back to their campus. We don't just want to throw them back into class, and we want to make sure that they're getting the support that they need when they return. And then for crisis intervention, we have a crisis team. On the secondary level, it's made up of our at-risk counselors and our student wellness counselors. So when death impacts our district, if there's a staff member or a student that dies, we go to the campus and support them in any way that they need. Sometimes we're there all day, sometimes we're there just until lunch, but whatever they need, we're there to provide support to the students and to the staff members. And then we follow up with them as well. If we notice that someone has been deeply impacted and they need more, then we follow up to make sure that they are good. And also, just crisis response. If there's an active suicide, they may call us to come to campus right away and support that campus in that way. And we also have, when we have time, we try to visit the facilities that we refer families to so that we're educated on where we're sending them. So if they ask us questions about how many beds, what's the age range, what's provided, we have that information as well. So this is just some of the feedback that we've received from our community, from parents. We've gotten input about the self-esteem that has been increased for some of their students. Francesca got a nice compliment this morning from one of our members here today. Also, Tanya Soto is the T-Chat parent coordinator, and she participated in our suicide awareness walk. And she said make sure that she gets invited back next year because she really thought it was a great event and was very proud of it, and that she couldn't believe it was our first time doing that. We had a parent who let us know that her son was very anxious just about the counseling process and what that looked like. And so after his first session, we received information to say thank you so much for what we did and how he's doing. And that student has since been terminated and has been, when I say terminated, that means exited. That means exited from services.
Yeah, you probably should find a better word.
In the LPC world, we call it termination, but that means exited from services. He is doing well and thriving on
Graduated, yeah.
Graduated, yes. I like that. Christy Earp, the director of
Transition, yeah,
the-
that's-
What was that?
Transition, Robert said, either one, better than terminated.
That's in the clinical world, certainly. Christy Earp said that she doesn't know what she'd do without us, so she really appreciates the work that we're doing. And then the campus counselor also let us know that she appreciated us being there and the great work that we've done.
Before I jump into the next part here, I just really want to highlight some of the work that they do, and I say this constantly, so anybody asks me, I can't believe we've only had them for just a little over a year. So much of the impact that they have been able to do in 1 year feels like it would have taken 3 to 5 years to implement in our district, and they just ran right through it in year one, and it's now a part of our culture and every day. The mental health and wellness fair last year, they touched on it very briefly, but this is something I'm hugely proud of them and Dr. Fagan's student advisory. It was something that came out of the two of them working together. And you know, for your first time hosting an event like that, we didn't really know what to expect. We were just going to be happy if we had a dozen people come out, and people couldn't get in the parking lot. It was at the point where they were pulling around and having to find other ways to sneak into the building because it was so full. We had kids, high school kids driving themselves coming to this, walking around with friends. It's just a huge way they have impacted the community and trying to destigmatize positive mental health practices and reaching out when help is needed. So we can't wait for year 2 on that this year in February. It's going to be another fabulous event, but it really was above and beyond any of our expectations for year 1. Ty and I want to talk a little bit too about some of the other mental health. We let them talk quite a bit because they're new and we want to make sure to highlight the great work they're doing. But we do work on several other mental health initiatives throughout the district that are just every student gets every day on their campus access to. One is our restorative practices. This is something, depending on the campus, has been going on anywhere from 3 to 5 years. But it really is a different way to look at it. At elementary, every single one of our elementary classrooms builds what they call community time into their schedule. And it's really a proactive approach to checking in with students, checking in on their mental health and well-being, and teaching them some of the mindful practices that they've talked about to help make sure that we're in tune and aware of what our students are needing. We also do problem-solving circles with students when interactions arrive between them and we need to repair a relationship breach, as well as some peer mediation, and when students, for whatever reason, are out of their home school for a while, whether it's a disciplinary infraction or a mental health need, working to transition them back successfully into their general ed program when they come back. Campus connections, there's just too many to name on here. I listed just a few. Many of our counselors do coffee with the counselors to meet more with parents, newsletters, mental health nights. Every one of our campuses has had some sort of a mental health night to get to know the administration team and the counselors better. We work very hard with our counselors and teams on self-care within the classroom, whether that's calming rooms, brain breaks, yoga, different ways for kids to incorporate that mindfulness and mental health well-being into the classroom itself and not have to necessarily always go outside the classroom to get that. We also have several anti-bullying campaigns going on at different campuses. Say hello, be kind, no place for hate, our Red Ribbon Weeks, things like that, as well as healthy relationship weeks. That looks very different whether you're at elementary or high school, and we talk more about dating violence and some other things specific, but it's all about healthy relationships when we do those type of things. And they already talked a little bit about the crisis team. The only thing I'll add is we have several comfort dogs in our district, which is just a huge support to not only the students, but all of the staff too. When we bring our comfort dogs into a crisis situation, it just instantly helps de-escalate a lot of the anxiety and fear they have in working with that. Do you want to add anything to that? Okay.
There are other supports throughout the district as we want to make sure that we are doing our best to support all of our students. Some of those supports include our school counselors. And our school counselors advocate for the needs of all students. They're working with students on an individual basis by providing those personalized counseling meetings. This allows them the opportunity to connect with the student and to help the student to feel comfortable when they need to seek out help, trusting that adult to share whatever's going on in their lives. We also want our teachers to get involved with our students and make those personal connections with them so that they have the opportunity to see firsthand if a student may be off one day, if they're down one day, and then they can alert the counselor. Our counselors also provide guidance lessons. The guidance lessons are geared towards mental health because we do want to destigmatize the notion of mental health being something that is negative. We want to make sure that kids feel comfortable expressing themselves, sharing how they feel, without having to feel embarrassed, ashamed, or just not wanting to speak out. We also encourage parents to have those conversations with the kids at the kitchen table. How was your day? Find out who did we eat lunch with. Just the basic things. Sometimes when our kids get in middle school and high school, we want to allow them more independence, but in allowing that independence, we still have to do some of those things, or we still should do some of those things that we did when they were in elementary school. Who did you play with today? Or who did you eat lunch with today? Our counselors also provide short-term counseling interventions. As you know, our counselors are seeing our students, each individual student, on the elementary level once per year, on the middle school level twice per year, as well as on the high school level. And so they have time to see all of those kids, but we want to make sure that they're providing counseling sessions to some of our kids who have higher needs than others. And referrals. They also provide referrals to community agencies as well as our student counselors if the students need more in-depth counseling services or more intensive counseling services. Our at-risk counselors. In the district, we have 11 at-risk counselors, and our at-risk counselors provide mental and behavioral support to students who are at risk of dropping out. And they could be at risk of dropping out for an array of reasons, but they target those students so that they can provide them with not only the mental health support that they need in order to graduate, but also academic support so that we can make sure that we get them on track and that they're completers.
So they're going campus to campus? I mean, they're like
Can you say it
itinerant, if that's the right word?
You want to know if they move from campus to campus or if they're just
So
located.
we have an at-risk counselor on our high school campuses. One at Humble High School, we have 3, and we have 2 middle schools with at-risk counselors.
Only at certain campuses?
Yes, on the middle school level. So high school, all high schools have an at-risk counselor. And they provide individual counseling services to those students as well. So they're targeting them to make sure that they meet their graduation requirements, but we also want to support their mental health as well.
But you also have the counselors that rotate around the district too, correct?
So we have our mental wellness, yes.
Yeah, that's what I
Yes.
thought.
We have our
Yeah.
student wellness counselors, and they will go out based upon the referrals that they receive from the campus counselor or the at-risk counselor.
And how many do you have? How many go? Just the 3?
We have 3.
Just 3?
But then you also have 504 facilitators as well.
Yes. If they have SPED services, they have 504 facilitators or LSSPs that can also help them out. Diagnosticians
Correct, yeah.
for our students who receive SPED services. And so all of those students she's talking about that are at risk, they still get the basic, their standard campus counselor services and the at-risk ones on top of it. So it's
Those
not-
are
it's
more
not a
targeted
replacement, right?
supports.
They're getting both those supports.
Correct. So it's not an and/or, they're receiving support from the school counselor as well as the at-risk counselor.
It just
But
doesn't
those
seem like you have
services-
enough people
Can
to,
you say it again?
I said, you just don't have enough people.
I'll
I mean,
always take more help.
Yes, that's right. We welcome the growth.
We've moved like miles here because we used to have counselors doing 504 things and all sorts of stuff.
I understand.
And so these are like baby steps.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and I'm not
Well, and you wanna,
criticizing that,
you
I'm
wanna,
just saying like,
you wanna
wow,
roll it out
it's so
Yes.
where it's specific to the
overwhelming.
needs.
Correct.
Because I mean, it's great to have a whole lot of people, but if we're not really specifically working for what we need, we wanna make sure we do that.
Correct, and as the need
We had no idea what it would
grows,
look
you
like.
know,
Yeah,
our support will grow.
And you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's just with all those kids.
And I have a question, so like how, so in a typical scenario, how does a kid get referred to you in the first place? Like what happens in the beginning
To
of
one
the
of the
process?
Refer to the student wellness
Yes, I'm
counselor.
sorry, yes,
Yeah.
in
So
particular.
we have a student that has a need that's beyond what a campus counselor can manage. So instances of extreme grief or like they witnessed a suicide or something really deep that a campus counselor, something very traumatic, something that is beyond their scope, then they say, you know, the student would benefit from a little bit more intense types therapy, which is what we provide. We don't call it therapy in school, but that's what we provide.
Okay.
And so we provide a deeper layer of intervention for those students.
But once the counselor refers the child to you, is that the point at which you call the parent, or do you see the child first and then call the parent?
So the counselor has to ask the parent, do I have your permission to refer
To you.
to us?
That's correct.
And so that conversation's already had, so then they come to us and say, we talked to the parent, they agree that the student would benefit from more help, and then they refer to us, and then we have a consultation, and they let us know their concerns. And we was like, yes, this is absolutely a good fit, and then we reach out to the parent to get that deeper informed consent and a written signature.
And to make that connection so that they're in communication with each other. And the parent can have a clear understanding of the progress that the student is making and if they need additional support.
But also, the parent can reach out to the school counselor and
Yes.
request the service
That
as
is
well.
correct. That is correct.
So I just have a question for the board. If you had to guess which level has the most students, which level would you think that goes to the
What do you
student
mean
wellness?
level? You mean-
Middle
Like
school.
I would
middle,
say
elementary,
middle
or
school.
high?
I would
Middle
say
school.
middle school.
Middle school?
So we actually just ran this data this week and had this conversation.
Elementary.
In their first year, 48% of the students seen were elementary.
Yep.
God.
But keep in mind, there are 30 elementary schools.
This is
only
But-
10
But
of
still
them.
only-
But it's elementary, like
Yeah.
you think their lives are
And this is
roughly
correct.
amounts
This is
to,
why I
right?
said, this is why I
Correct.
said primarily, because we did have to pull in our middle school and high school counselor to help our elementary
But
one last year.
do you find it's upper elementary or
Yeah, I
lower?
was
or
gonna say, are
just
they clustered to like fifth
a
and
cluster?
With
fourth?
the recent pandemic, right, we see that some of our kinder, first, and second graders, this is sometimes their first normal, couple of years in school. So we're still adjusting and just going through that global trauma together, even
That's a
us
very
as
good
adults.
point. The kids we're-
Right?
we're working
So
with.
I would say it's a very large mix
Yes.
between lower and upper elementary.
That makes perfect sense, though. with
So I have a
what's
question.
going on.
And this is more for Dr. Fagan. So this is a line item that I would love to make sure we can not only continue to have, but grow, right? So I know you said that this was paid for by ESSER funds. How do we make sure that this is a constant moving forward? And then budget-wise, how do we grow?
Right, so we'll come to you in the spring and give you an update on the ESSER.
budget time.
And then we'll also talk about any expansions that we would like to recommend. They're going to talk in a minute about, that very typical of me. I called them all in and said, hey, I've been thinking. And they have been doing a tremendous amount of work, and I don't want to steal any of their thunder on that, but this whole notion of mental health is really important for school safety.
Yes.
And we're seeing, 250 students in just a year on threat assessments. That's really out of,
Well, that's just suicide risk
Yeah, risk
assessment. That's not
assessment.
campus assessment.
no,
That's
that's,
a separate number,
but
correct.
seriously, suicide risk assessments. I bet you all had no idea that number would be
But
that,
that's still
right?
So many.
So
Yeah.
the reality of mental health right now is that it's unaddressed. If you ask Larissa Corduba, there's nowhere to send those kids. If you ask Justin Kendrick, he doesn't have beds for those kids. If you ask Liz Fagan, where do those kids go, right? So we've created this little niche program of our own to see what the need is. Well, now we know, we have supporting data, we have the numbers, and we understand the levels of service that are necessary. And so we're gonna come forward with more stuff. So I'll get back to them so they can tell you about it.
So a couple of things that we're working on right now is we recognize the ESSER grants are going to expire in 2024. So we are looking at other grant opportunities to not only extend hopefully their contract beyond that, but also potentially add additional support. Because as Dr. Fagan said, we asked for the three of them to start not knowing really what the need was going to be. We didn't have any baseline data. Now we have a year's worth of baseline data, and already this year we're projected way over that to what we had in year one. So we're looking for additional support, hopefully through a grant that way as well. We'd also really like to see a substance abuse counselor added to our team for everything from vaping to others, having some form of a not only proactive approach to counseling for this, but maybe an alternative to disciplinary action for people in their first offenses in this. So that's something we're hoping to do as well in the future. Dr. Fagan mentioned a great idea she had, so we've been working in collaboration with our special ed team as well, because again, what we see often is, and then this is very typical, parents want to get their kids help, but a residential facility is not the answer for every one of our students who needs help. And that's a huge part as a parent, that I'm going to let go of you and I don't get to see you come home at night, I don't get to see you for 10 days or longer. Like, that's a huge ask of some parents that they're just not ready to pull away from yet. So we'd like to look at developing, what would it look like if we had a program within Humble ISD where we remove the student from their home campus, but it's still receiving all of their academic daily support. So there's no lapse or gaps there in their academics, so they're not falling behind, because when they go to a residential facility, they're now coming back after missing several days of school, and that's another anxiety and stress that gets added to the student. They still get to go home to their parents at night because they're still a part of Humble ISD, but we would be able to provide targeted mental health support, therapy. We would completely redo what the classroom and electives look like for those kids, to embed those mental health supports within that classroom as well, help really work and triage those kids individually. We'd be able to offer, because it's in district, family support after hours, so they can have family group therapy and sessions with it as well, and then be able to gradually transition our kids back to this regular classroom, because it's in district, we control that, rather than just today you're gone, tomorrow you're back, and having no control. And honestly, if they go to a residential facility, we have no idea what they have been working on as strategies. We have no idea how to help support that kid when they come back, unless that's disclosed to us, which more often than not it is not disclosed to us.
And normally when they go to a residential facility, they're not receiving that academic support or the academic piece. And so it's even more stressful when they return, because they're trying to get caught up. And so we'd like to remove that barrier.
So we, after our audit meeting yesterday, we were visiting with Dr. Fagan about this very thing. How much space, are y'all at a point to where you can say, yeah, if we had X amount of space, this program could work? You know, we've got some opportunities as we're in the design phase of a couple facilities, like Mosaic, for instance, that we could add that space to it. Are y'all at that point already? Or?
We are. We've had, we actually just had this conversation yesterday.
You give them a day.
Once by the time it's built, you will be ready.
Yeah,
That's right.
Dr. Fagan met with us on Monday. It's Thursday. We've already got calculations done. We've been working.
Okay, but same thing. I mean, in the design of what do you actually need? What types of space?
So we did talk about this quite a bit, and I think, you know, numbers are hard to gauge on this, because we can only estimate off of the numbers they know of for students who may need residential services and did or didn't take it. But if we just say, let's estimate, we would have a cap of 125 to 150 students at a time. We would probably need anywhere from 15 to 16 classrooms. But keep in mind, we don't want this to look like a traditional school. We want this to be very collaborative, very open.
A wellness space.
Correct. And so when we're thinking about that, we would want a very wholesome, healthy body, healthy mind theory on it. A lot of the open collaborative spaces like Sconzo has built into it for family time. A kitchen area that is designed to build therapy within the kitchen even, because for a lot of students, cooking and baking can be therapeutic, and we want to try to find ways to bring that on. Fitness center, not a traditional PE type thing, you know.
But here's but here's another question. Okay, realistically, you're working with babies, with, you know, K through. are we looking at putting them all in that space at some point?
Separate.
Well, separate
spaces.
spaces.
That's correct.
Our
Separate
initial thought was just, we need to have, I mean, at that level, you'd have to group them somewhat, you know. So we
Okay.
might have like a K1 classroom, a
Okay.
2-3 classroom, a 4-5 type thing, and then middle and high school. But then you share those different spaces appropriately with the age group. So
Totally understand.
while they may see each other, they're not going to interact on a daily basis.
Now, would this be an addition to or replacement of? I know one of the things we talked about is DAEP, and those kids are gone, then they come back, sort of like what you were talking about. Would it be replacing some things like that, or in addition to?
We were thinking in addition to.
Okay.
In addition to.
A lot of the differences we've discussed is in DAP, that is a disciplinary placement,
Correct.
and there are some requirements by law.
Okay.
We would have a lot more flexibility. So if a student came to us and said, listen, I do need this, the parent agrees we need this, but fine arts is everything to me. I cannot lose out on my orchestra. That's my happy group, that's my safe group. We're gonna find a way that they still get that need on campus, because we're not required to follow the same rules as DAP.
Correct.
So we don't wanna take away anything that is a reason kids want to come to school, and we'd be able to have that flexibility to try to build in that passion or whatever that is for them. Athletics, they're working on a scholarship, something, we don't wanna pull that away and make it a punishment to be a part of this.
And earlier you said you do training with parents, like around stigma. My question is, do you also do that with the teachers?
Yes.
I have had 4 kids. The vast majority of my teachers have been phenomenal, no doubt. But I have had a couple, especially with one of my kids who had ADD, that were like, you know, I don't understand if he needs modifications, why he's in pre-AP science. And I'm like, well, first of all, it's the law. But not every parent is going to say that, right?
Right,
But so
right.
I guess that will be my question, because I feel like there is still a handful of teachers out there that still have a stigma attached to whether you're 504 or special ed when you're in a regular ed classroom.
And so our campus counselors provide professional development on their specific campuses, and our student wellness counselors have gone out to provide professional development to staff to talk about mental health and how to address mental health concerns. Also talking about trauma-informed practices. How do we deal with students based upon the trauma that they've experienced? How do we talk to them? What are some trigger words that we need to avoid? And so there is that piece for professional development for our staff.
And one other thing I'd like to add in is, by pulling together all of my departments, this is just one of our personalized student success. Advanced academics is also a part of that. So Dr. Udicrit and his team work very closely with our counseling team, because we are trying to work on those conversations that you mentioned in our advanced courses, the theory of gatekeeping, breaking those down. We want as many kids as possible. I'd much rather have kids that are struggling a little with advanced coursework in middle school, work through a productive struggle on that, where we give them the support so that by the time they're in high school, they are more ready and comfortable for it. And things such as ADHD or anxiety are not should not be a barrier
Correct.
to our students taking advanced coursework.
Okay.
And our additional supports are our behavioral support counselors. Our behavioral support counselors. So we have behavior specialists within our district. We have 3 on the elementary level and 2 on the secondary level. Embedded within those specialists, we have counselors. So 1 counselor on the elementary level and 1 counselor on the secondary level. And they're helping those students work through their mental health and behavioral health issues and concerns. They're collaborating with the campuses to help them provide or to create behavior intervention plans so that we can take a proactive approach before those kids reach DAEP. And last but not least, our McKinney-Vento counselors. We have 3 McKinney-Vento counselors and 1 foster care counselor. And they work with our more targeted population, our students who are experiencing homelessness. They work with not only the students in the campus, but they also work with the families, connecting them with food banks, helping them to find shelter. And so our goal is to provide a comprehensive counseling service to our students in Humble ISD. And with the growth and the need, our hope is that our department will grow as well. Thank you.
Is there any
That was very strategic plug.
Very good at it.
For me, I have three things.
Okay.
One thing is quick and easy. Next time, I didn't get an invitation. I don't know if we
Yeah, I
knew
don't
about
think
this.
Oh, but we
So send us an email.
We will send it
like,
to you
know.
directly, yes.
And of course, we can't all be everywhere, right?
Sure.
But I was like, wow, I didn't hear about
Well, I
that.
was trying to say,
I didn't know, but.
We'd
yeah.
love for you guys to come in.
No,
So
we're very
we will
excited.
invite you.
Yeah, and then it's 1K. I probably could handle that.
Yeah.
So
nothing over one.
that's what I need
I
to
can
be
do
at.
a .5 really.
Oh my goodness.
It was a very hot day.
She was the only one that actually had an umbrella that
I did for the sun. I was like, I'm not going to be red.
Well, and then the second thing, and I probably speak for a lot of board members on this. The only area, y'all are doing phenomenal work, so please know that. But one area that I would like to see our district, and I'm also talking to Dr. Fagan, I know she's doing this as well. I want a much deeper dive on anti-bullying. That is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I've had out of 4 kids, I've had a kid that was severely bullied. And I hear the stories over and over and over, and I know it's a common thing. I know it happens all across America. But I think that we need to really look at that and take a much deeper dive in trying to eradicate. I want to be the leaders in this country on what we do to stop bullying.
I'm glad you brought that up. Dr. Fagan's student advisory has also identified this as one of their areas. So they have 4 main topics, and there's a very large group of them that are in our mental health and wellness group, and a specific subset that has asked to work on some anti-bullying campaigns this year as well. So we're hoping to use the students to help us build that.
We want input from
Yes.
them to help steer the direction that we go.
Yes.
Yeah. And then my last thing is a question. I don't know, so if a kid, and I guess it brings knowledge, I guess, because I do have 4 kids. But so, for example, I have 1 kid who's ADD. But when I found that out, basically, I did not have services in school at that time. He's older now, so I didn't have services in school at that time to diagnose him, so to speak. Do we have anything in place where, so I spent lots of money to take my kid somewhere. He spent lots of time with a nationally certified doctor, PhD, and basically from that, she said, okay, your child is ADHD. He's mostly attentive ADD, inattentive type. He's primarily an auditory learner. He's spatially gifted, mathematically gifted, and he's, with reading, his fluency is off the charts auditorily, but he's struggling if it's not auditory. So, and she gave me all that information, and at the time, I'm like, oh, okay, how did she know all that after spending, I don't know, a few days with him? But it was life-changing. It helped me, chart a path for him, and it was life-changing, honestly. But do we have, and I know we have a lot, 49,000 students, so you can't do that with every kid, but is there something where you can say, okay, these are your kids' strengths, and this is where they have challenges, and if you take that information, and now you can help them in so many different ways. Just,
I know that the diagnosticians do assess for those types of things, and that is what they do in their initial assessment, and students have to be referred for that. That's not something that is automatic. It sounds like you're saying there should be a screener just to catch those kids that fall on the cracks, but the DIACs do screen for those types of things.
Based upon a referral.
Right.
based on.
And there's
I
so many
think
pathways to
what you're
get
talking about for all students to kind of screen what I'm good at, what my skills are, that type of thing is something we're working on.
Well,
to be
some of
more-
that was extra information.
Sure,
He was
sure.
struggling, obviously, and I was like, okay, I don't know what to do with
Right.
this. I've tried everything I know from an education standpoint.
So
And
you-
so I called around, and I need the best person, who can I take my kid to? And it was a full, so I don't think we could do a full day with every single
Right,
student. It was
right.
multiple days that he had to go all day, bring your lunch and go all of these all of these tests. But the information that I got from that, even if it were just the pieces that he's spatially and mathematically gifted in
That-
AD,
yes.
that would have been great.
Yes.
I didn't need everything else,
But
but
that is the part we are
helpful.
trying to work on through this,
Okay.
and what that can look like, so parents and teachers are aware that this group of my kids are very visual learners. So,
Yes.
I'm not gonna remember anything you say to me, I'm a visual learner. If you say it auditorily, it's not coming in. But being able to group our kids and know that's things we're working on. It's a little more of informal right now through the personalized counseling program, program, but we've been looking at some programs with other things on what that would look like to, I think, be a little more scripted, like you're
Correct.
saying, to be able to
And
and intentional to give that. And then the next layer would be if a student needs above and beyond help, working with the campus on a referral process like that as well.
And right now, our counselors are working with students with now-beyonds. And so they are taking multi-intelligence tests to help them identify strengths and weaknesses, but not at the
Quite the
depth
depth you're
that
talking about, yeah. But we've been looking and having some conversations on what that could look like with some other programs to be more specific. If, again, not all of them have to be, it could be a situation where the parent has requested that, or the kid wants to do it, or it's in a station or something, but we want to be able to at least provide that for them, but we got to find the right fit here still.
Well, I don't know, for me, and I can't speak for everybody, but I'm 110% wanting to help fund, push all of that. Whatever, to me, this is the foundation and what's most important in all of the aspects, whether it's safety, education, you know, all of those different aspects.
Thank you.
So.
Well, go ahead.
You go.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is, I think that this is like a completely reframing of the education model that we've had for over 100 years in American education. So it's not a small task, I want to put that out there, but we really are committed to helping kids own their own strengths and their own challenges, which is completely different than their parents or their counselors or their teachers owning it. They need to start to learn at an elementary level, these are the things I'm good at, these are the things I don't prefer, but I need to work on, and then be advocates for themselves as they go through, not just school, but life, and recognize that my assets are great, and so are Marcus's, and if we work together, we bring different things to the table, and all are valued, instead of the only things that are valued are math and reading, because that's what's on the STAR test, and I'm not very good at that, so then I'm not a very valuable person. Or I'm not valuable because I'm not great at football or whatever. We just have to switch the mentality that we have. And we have 100 years to overcome on that. But I want you to know that we really are committed at the elementary into switching that conversation to everybody has great things. What are your great things? Go ahead, Ken.
A little deeper dive. When you have an unwilling parent or guardian, right? Let's say it's brought to your attention, you go talk to the parent, you go through your process, talk to the child, go back to the parent, and then they throw a block up at you, or the guardian. What's the next steps?
So depending on the situation, we cannot service a child without permission at the end of the day. They can't see a parent without permission, but we try very hard to work as many avenues as we can. The mental health unit at the police department is also a huge asset in this and helping have conversations that are sometimes a little more convincing coming from them than us of a need. But we try to be as proactive we can. Home visits if needed to come out and try to get it. If it's a life or death situation, then we will intervene with the police department to get the child the services they need if it's life or death. But we do try everything we can to help convince the parent of the value of this. And I would say more often than not, they've been able to do that. It's been very few times they've hit an absolute resistance in that.
And Sergeant Ferris and the mental health unit really come in when it's those life or death, hey, we need to protect your child.
And a lot of the times when there's negative energy from parents, it's a lack of education about what's to come. And so once we explain the process and what we do and how it can benefit their child, they usually change their minds and,
They collaborate and they want to work with us.
Some of them have even decided, okay, well, maybe we'll do virtual because then nobody knows about the services, and then they transition over to face-to-face when they start realizing its value. So they try to ease them in as much as we can to get them on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, just a comment, this is all serious stuff that we're talking about and all the slides you've shown. And while it is a percentage of our students that's probably growing, because some of the numbers we talked about is probably more than most of us expected, I think my comments are, as a board member, it's great to see the progression go from an idea or a thought when Dr. Fagan came in and how we can revamp and this personalized learning strategies and all that. And from personal experience, the transition from elementary to middle is tough for kids. It may not rise to a mental issue, so to speak, but it is still tough. The transition from middle school to high school is extremely tough. And the way that our process of inter-district transfers and stuff for programs, a student may be going to a new school for a specific program that knows no one, and that makes the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade that much harder. And I'm speaking from experience. And, you know, my daughter, who excels in everything, really struggled hard in that transition from 8th to 9th grade. And then instead of Atascocita, Kingwood Park, new friends and so forth. And we've met with multiple of you ladies, not just on scheduling, but her going to her school counselor. The whole process worked. You know, you two ladies were invaluable on the scheduling side. Her school counselor's been invaluable on being that resource, and then reaching out. And I'm drawing a total blank on your name.
Maria Ingram.
Yes, and so Caitlin's had an opportunity to meet with her as well. So this, from a personal experience, this process is not just for a specific type of student.
Yes.
It's available for all
That is
students, and they all look different. And it's working, and she's successful, and the transition I see this year, she is enjoying the high school experience this year.
That's good.
And her schedule and her, most of y'all know all the stuff she's in. None of that's changed. You know, last year was a struggle every day of how are we going to get through the day, kind of an attitude. Whereas this year it's embracing and enjoying. There's still the stress of the class schedule and all that stuff. But I guess my comment is just it's working. It's working, and this is something we didn't have before. So, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you guys are available to everybody?
Always.
All students, you know, all parents, and who goes with staff to, you mentioned it, and Francesca mentioned too, the home visit things. Who goes with them? They don't go by themselves?
Student support
Okay.
officer.
Somebody
Sergeant
goes.
Ferris or Corporal Benson.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Somebody goes with you. That's all. All right, we're good.
Safety is always number one for our staff as
That's
well.
fine.
The police
You
department
didn't
is
say.
doing great with their mental health unit because Corporal Vadziminix, who also does a lot of our elementary options with kids, right? Like going and visiting campuses, he can wear a soft uniform where he does not, he's not in full uniform, and he's able to relate to those
Gotcha.
children and have that positive police interaction with them.
Before we leave this topic, I just want to mention to the board that this is a legislative year. They have $30 billion of surplus. The focus on Uvalde and school safety is #1 with all of our lawmakers. We would love to see advocacy around the topic of fund something unique in Humble ISD. Let us break through this barrier, create something then that they can replicate throughout the state at other school districts. And I know that Judge Corduba, as well as Justin Kendrick from Memorial Hermann, would be in support of, in testimony letters or whatever, that is an absolute need. So you all have lots of connections with lots of lawmaking folks, and this is something we need to get on their radars. We're not quite ready to give them the actual, like, here's what it looks like, here's what we need, but we're really close, and we know the bills start being made now. And so in those conversations, at those fundraisers you're at and things, if you could please put this bug in the ear of elected officials, we would really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we will have an estimate to you by Monday.
Henry Phipps is in the room, and he goes, we all met together on Monday, and he goes, just pretend Liz isn't here for a minute. Liz works really fast, y'all. We're going to have to really do, and they've worked amazing. And they've liked it. You all have enjoyed this work, right?
Yes.
Yes, they have really, at least that's what they're telling me.
Yeah, they have genuine smiles.
They really do.
It really is.
We're able to provide community events, right, to raise awareness, but we're also able to work individually with our kids, right? Which is two of the things we as licensed professional counselors, like that's what we work for if we were in private practice, right? We want to destigmatize, educate, and really, help our community.
Excellent.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank
you
so
guys are
much.
fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
All right, the next part, given the timeline, Chief, did you get my text?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we need to, the next piece has to be into executive session, so if you want to still do
Okay.
that. Because we're long on time.
Pardon me?
Oh, I was.
Our original plan was to relocate to another room, the additional sections. However, if there's no members of the public present, we can stay put.
We can stay here.
Yeah, I think so here, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Then I just say whoever wasn't planning on going back to closed session can take their day.
Yeah.
And then we can close and we probably turn the recording off. Thank you.
Turn it off now.
thank you.
Thank y'all very
Thanks,
much.
Todd.
After I
Thank y'all.
Martina's gonna
Yes.
close this out to executive, and then we'll have a restart of the meeting, or meeting close.
Okay,
We'll be relocating for the shields on the sideboard.
okay.
Oh, okay.
A closed session of the board will now be held on the matters contained in the notice for this meeting. Should the board determine that any final action, final decision, or final vote be required with regard to any matter considered in such closed session, then such final action, final decision, or final vote will be made upon reconvening of this public meeting in open session. A closed session of the board will now be held. The time is 8:32 a.m. The time is now 9:13 a.m. We will now reconvene into open session. The time is now 9:13 a.m. This meeting is now adjourned.